So I'm happy. Oh, go ahead, because I was going to talk to you about my tea.
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to talk to you about Ukraine, so why don't you tell me about your tea?
Listen, Ukraine, calling from the Ukraine.
Hello from Ukraine. We have to
Hello
explain
from
that
Ukraine.
to people. I explained that to Will recently because we were talking about Ukraine, and I was like, so the last time Russia invaded the Ukraine, we were watching Eurovision. And it was very sad to see live from Kyiv how, like, the guy, I just remember the guy for Ukraine just looked so, like, frightened. And we just
and like decided, completely overwhelmed. Like, why are we still doing Eurovision right now?
Why do I have to be on Eurovision right now when my country's being invaded? And we just kept joking that they were gonna like come on and be like, hello from Ukraine, please send help.
Yeah, please send food. But no, they just reported that they didn't vote for the British artist because nobody votes for the UK.
Nobody votes for the zero for the UK.
Zero for the UK. I was going to say that my fun tea, the Spanish tea that I found that helps me breathe better.
Yeah.
That is super hard to get because Spanish. The American Yogi brand, that like yellow boxes, is not as tasty, but it works just as well. So
is it like the Breathe Deep or something?
Yeah, it's not amazing, but I like the Spanish one better, but I can only get it when the ships are getting unloaded at ports. So
intermittently.
So yes, intermittent access.
I am drinking my Frida Kahlo watermelon rose hibiscus tea.
Thank you, Brittany Breslin. Brittany Ann for that.
Thank you, Brittany Breslin. Yeah. No, the only thing I was going to tell you about the Ukraine was that this film we're watching for Iceland is supported in part by the Ukrainian film. And I was like, what?
Why is our life so weird?
It just came up on the credits and I was like, I'm sorry?
Yeah, friends who are watching, we're currently prepping Iceland Colonizers World Tour for a couple weeks from now. And okay,
Apparently the film you selected is sponsored in part by the Ukrainian Film Ministry.
Good job, Ukraine.
It's like all our pictures of us, we're doing this with our hands.
If you look on my LinkedIn page of like the 3 pictures of my TED Talks, all the screenshots are me doing this. Like,
I know. It's so funny.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to February 22nd, also known as my anniversary.
It is. Also, it's anniversary day 2.
Anniversary day 2. We have a 2-day anniversary, which the next AMA, I'll be happy to answer why and tell that story. But it is a fun day here at Abbey Research. We are not going to reflect that in the conversation today. Today is not a fun day.
Today is not a celebratory topic.
Not a celebratory topic. So obviously we're talking about the Olympics. You saw the title. Hello to our replay crew. Hello to everyone who's listening on the podcast. Hello to everybody who is with us here live. We'll be talking about not only Kamila Valieva and all of that, but also the narrative around Mikaela Shiffrin and the narrative, like the constant trauma that seems to come with being an Olympic athlete. We will be focusing mostly on women's figure skating for sure, because that is the most glaring example at the moment. But I was particularly disappointed with how the media talked about Mikaela Shiffrin, especially after we just covered Simone Biles, with the exception of Mike Tirico, who continues to be like the truth teller here.
I know. Mike Tirico came to play, man.
He is not messing around.
No.
So with the it was a lot of like, what, a lot of that conversation. Then, of course, we always do empathy exercises, as you are aware.
We do.
And I want you to know that the world is not short on empathy exercises. But
no, if you saw the Instagram live yesterday, we had like 45.
And if you didn't catch the Instagram live, which we should link in these show notes, we have to figure out a way to do that.
Good idea.
The reason that Aaron did so many yesterday afternoon is that we've decided to do one empathy exercise today, and we're going to be talking about Kim Kardashian and Kanye West. And that is because we believe it is a longer conversation. We want to give it its due. And we want to be able to pay it the respect in a way that it deserves. This is a grievous situation, unlike the headlines might have you believe. So we want to dive into that a little bit. So a little bit of a different format. We understand, but we hope you'll go with us. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll get cracking.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Where is this window? I have so many windows. Okay, here we go.
I love this headline from BuzzFeed. It's like so long. Good night, nurse.
So essentially what has happened, if you are not aware, and like there's this really great John Oliver joke last night where it's like this thing he was talking about critical race theory. He's like, critical race theory is going to be about like Rihanna's pregnancy. Whether or not you think it affects you, you're going to hear a whole lot about it. And that's a little bit of how I feel about this topic. Whether or not you think it affects you, you're hearing a whole lot about it. Yep. So let's unpack it a little bit for everyone. Really quick recap. Kim Kardashian West and Kanye West were married. They are now in the middle of what is an increasingly messy divorce. Kim filed a while ago. Kanye West is not known for being the most mentally stable human in how he behaves. And this has ratcheted up exponentially since Valentine's Day, where Kanye West was with somebody whose name I cannot remember. She is not consequential to this story. But he broke up with her. And then even though Kim Kardashian is in a confirmed and happy relationship, supposedly with Pete Davidson, Hollywood's happy boyfriend, Kanye sent her a pickup truck full of red roses. And that kind of made the whole internet go, I'm sorry?
Yeah, and it was like the day before at the Super Bowl. He was at the Super Bowl and he was like posting on Instagram about how much he missed his wife. And like it's been a series of escalating posts about him not acknowledging the divorce proceedings, him not acknowledging that they're going to separate at all. Like, and he's doing it all on social media, which is one of the things why we wanted to talk about it today. Because it is just this very visceral form of harassment, to be perfectly blunt. And a lot of people are treating it, because these are folks in entertainment, as if it's entertainment, when in actuality, Kim Kardashian is being harassed openly and explicitly by her ex.
Yeah, so here this is, despite Ye's public efforts to win her back, Kim laid low and made it clear she was still pursuing their divorce. In December, she filed to be declared legally single. And in formal documents said that no counseling or reconciliation effort would fix their marriage. She is out.
She's done. She has said, no, thank you.
She is out. Ye is doing a lot of talk about how God will bring them back together. In January, he released a track that said, God saved me from this crash just so I can beat Pete Davidson's ass, calling him out directly in a song. This is just continually, he talks about Kim as a possession, instead of a person. Now, as of this point, I have not seen anything where Kanye is threatening the lives of the children that they have together or threatening to do anything to the children.
No.
But it needs to be acknowledged they have several children together.
They do, I think 4. And I think, one of the ways that this escalated as well was that Kanye is using...
We are to call him Ye, evidently.
We are to call him Ye. Is using social media and using his fan base to like escalate both against his ex and against Pete Davidson, and like called for his fans to, if you see, he calls him Skeet, but obviously we all know who he's talking about. If you see him like out and about, like scream in his face.
Yeah, harass him publicly.
Harass him publicly. And then like Kim got onto him and was like, what are you doing? Please stop. Like Pete has to have security anyway like, why are you doing this? And then he took screenshots of their private conversations and posted them on social media.
Yeah.
And again, he has a history of mental instability. And so, like, one of the things,
or at least
I wanted,
actions that betray that.
or actions that portray that, yeah. And I think, the reason we thought this was juicy enough to have as just our only empathy exercise is because, we want to be real sure and talk about this harassment, and especially the way we're reacting to it. And so many people are laughing about it, sharing it, making memes about it. And as this headline says, harassment isn't a joke. But also, because what it says about kind of our society and how we handle these types of allegations and how we handle people's various instabilities. So, there's like layers to this that all needed to be kind of aired for the sake of understanding.
Yeah, and we want to state unequivocally that absolutely no matter what we feel about Kim Kardashian, no matter how she earned her fame or earns her money, no matter any of those things, no human being deserves to feel unsafe.
Yeah.
And no human being deserves this kind of treatment. One of the other pieces of this is that our society has kind of decided that stalking is romantic.
Yeah.
In a really interesting way.
Really?
And we're just
problematic.
Really problematic way. So for anyone who's watching us on the YouTubes, we have up a still from Love Actually, the character of Andrew Lincoln, proposing his love to Kim Kardashian, listen to me, to Keira Knightley. Mm-hmm. Keira Knightley's character. At the time of this scene, Keira Knightley's character is married to Andrew Lincoln's best friend. Mm-hmm. And Andrew Lincoln has been played by Chiwetel Ejiofor. And Andrew Lincoln has evidently been in love with Keira Knightley's character for a long time. Yep. And decides that because it is Christmas, she should know.
And this is after she finds this is after the wedding they have video a falling out because she figures out in the wedding video that he only shot footage of her.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, we've talked about this a lot offline, and so we saw this as another opportunity to talk about kind of the way our culture shapes how we see relationships. Because when I first saw Love Actually, I thought it was romantic because that's what my culture had told me was romantic behavior.
Yep.
And I was thinking about, even as I was doing research to try and find some of these articles, and there was a survey done recently. Show notes will have lots of research that we've done as per usual. But I was thinking, Can't Hardly Wait was one of my favorite movies. And Ethan Embry's character's kind of creepy.
Yep.
Kind of obsessed with Jennifer Love Hewitt. And it's okay because he's a nice guy.
Yeah. And I very, very frequently those are all the screenshots for now. So I'll pull us back. And all of these links, of course, will be in the show notes as always. I link this a lot to Phantom of the Opera, which is
Phantom of the Opera syndrome or something.
Yeah, I famously loathe this musical for the story of it. The production is gorgeous. I feel a certain way about the music, but whatever. But fundamentally, the story is about a stalker who is controlling a young girl's life. And Lloyd Webber wrote it and they stage it to make us believe that this is romantic. Mm-hmm. There's literally, the love song is called The Music of the Night. Mm-hmm. So and that is the love song. So we have this understanding that as women to be pursued, and believe it or not, this has roots in Christian puritanical theology, but we have decided that to be pursued is romantic.
Yeah.
And sure, it can be, but pursuit to stalking turns really quick when either she says no, implicitly or explicitly. So Keira Knightley said no by marrying somebody else. Christine says no by not wanting to go with the Phantom a little bit. And then she gets some Stockholm syndrome and it's a whole mess. But she's with Raoul. That's supposed to be her romantic foil, not the Phantom.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to think that the Phantom's behavior is okay because he is so misfigured and misunderstood. Okay. I had a stalker, and I'll tell you what he wasn't: misunderstood. It's...
Yeah, and I think, because it replicates a power dynamic in which women are not are not empowered to have agency and choice, and that it's romantic to have that taken away from us.
Yeah.
And, this goes back to, like, I was just thinking, because, I read historical romance all the time, and I was reading a historical romance in which the character, like, loved those kind of gothic romance novels where there's always, like, some dastardly handsome villain that's pursuing the innocent maiden. And, like, what's her Catherine Morley, I think, Catherine, whatever her surname is, from Northanger Abbey, is the same. Her character is obsessed with, like, this fantasizing of being at risk of a dangerous and sexy stranger. So this trope goes back in literature quite a long time. But we've had it solidified visually ever since the Phantom of the Opera. And so, this is one of those times where we talk about the culture of permissibility, in that as we continue to tell these stories in which it is permissible for men to behave this way towards women explicitly, although stalking does happen in other kinds of romantic relationships. It allows for the permissibility of that behavior, which then allows for the escalation of that behavior, as we're seeing with what Ye is doing with Kim Kardashian.
Yeah. So we'll hit pause on this conversation right now. Our encouragement to you, though, in light of this empathy exercise, is to evaluate, just double check, like, what you're laughing at when it comes to celebrities, because as we have been consistently reminded here at Abbey Research is that all of these people are people. And in the next week, actually, next Thursday, you're going to hear our analysis of the documentary This Is Paris. And that's a doozy for remembering that famous people are people too. So this is one for them. So we would definitely say everyone in this situation needs empathy, including Ye himself, who needs a lot of things, and never to run for president again. Ever. So we're going to transition now to our main topic. And I am going to really briefly share the screen and put up an image that I'm going to be shocked if all of you haven't seen at this point. But this one's pretty endemic of the conversation we want to have today. The image on the screen is of Kamila Valieva sobbing hysterically in the kiss and cry after her long program performance with her coach, Ateri, whose last name I cannot pronounce. And I'll be really honest, I'm not going to try. We're just going to call her Coach. And the way that this woman chose to coach Kamila is through a lot of shaming. So we see. So we're going to go rewind back. But for anyone who's watching this, we wanted you to have this visual. For those of you who are listening, this picture. They're both in masks. Kamila is crying, and Coach has one arm around her and is looking annoyed to even be there. So there is no comfort, there is no solace, there is no love in this picture. And so we're going to link a whole lot of things in the show notes that we've found, including an article from Slate that is entirely about how this person hopes they never see a figure skating event like that again. We've got coverage from the New York Times about the coaching. There's other things about kind of the culture of figure skating. There's another one that we'll share from Bleacher Report, one from The Cut, from a former Olympic skater saying we've got to change the system, all of those things. But what we really wanted to talk about today is, in light of, this is a little bit of like our continuing coverage of how terribly we treat Olympic athletes.
Right.
Because a lot of this is we're going to refer to our coverage of the documentary More Than Gold, or Weight of Gold.
Weight of Gold.
Thank you.
Yeah,
so
Weight of Gold. More Than Gold was the Jesse Owens one. I always get them confused too, so I had to look it up.
So Weight of Gold is about the mental health crisis that is affecting American athletes, and I think pretty clearly we can see is affecting Russian athletes. So I remember I said to somebody yesterday, like, my life is a little bit, stressful all the time. And I have a lot of things in the air and things are kind of rough, but I'm not a 15-year-old girl who had a meltdown on international television who then had to go back to that woman and Russia. So I'm doing just fine.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously Kamila Valieva is at the center of a doping scandal. We should say right up front, we stand with all of the athletes who say that she should not have competed.
Yeah.
She tested positive. She should not have competed. That is it. End of story.
Yep.
She did, though. And we want to talk a little bit about why we think she did and the ramifications of why she did. We are not going to get into the Russia geopolitical of it all. Mostly because we are only as informed around it as Slate has let us be. And also because that's a rabbit hole we could fall down forever. But it's no secret that the Russian coaches are intense. There are reports of 15 to 18-hour workout days sometimes, all of that. But we'd like to take this time and kind of broaden it a little bit back because it isn't just Kamila who was shown crying on television this time. We also had Michaela Schifrin, who was the gold hope. And the story constantly was that she didn't even qualify for her first two events. And the camera stayed on her as she sat on a scope and cried. And why can we not understand that elite athletes have trauma around competition? So that's kind of where we're going for the next probably 20-ish minutes. Dr. Aaron, over to you.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this. We talked about the Olympics last year on our channel during the Summer Olympics, and we covered specifically the weight of gold. And we talked about in empathy exercises how the media talked about Simone Biles and what she went through in terms of withdrawing from the individual competition, and how she talked about mental health. And, at the time, I remember us being like, we hope this means we'll be more willing to talk about it going forward. And the way that we cover these athletes, the way that we construct national narratives around them. I mean, and they are symbolic of national hopes and aspirations. That's kind of built in, and they understand that. But I think too often we focus so much on the national aspiration side that we don't see the human side. And we don't have hard conversations about the systems that these athletes go through. And like one of the other reasons I don't want to talk about geopolitics in Russia and coaching is because Russia's not the only Olympic committee that's had abusive systems within them. I mean, we've talked about ad nauseum the U.S. Olympic Committee's complicity in the USA Gymnastics abuse scandal. Never mind the Larry Nassar of it all, but the way the Karolis were allowed to treat the young girls in their program was exceptionally abusive and traumatic for them. Even if you take like the Larry Nassar chunk out of it. But I think for me, we didn't learn. We didn't learn from last year's Olympics in terms of how we talked about it. We certainly saw Michaela Schifrin. I thought we were a lot more empathetic for Shaun White as a nation. So we can talk about the gender politics of that. Yeah. A lot more understanding, but I think that's also because we didn't think he was going to win the gold.
He wasn't a favorite. And
everybody wanted to see him medal, but he'd already, done his part for us.
For America.
But yeah, I hope that witnessing the trauma, that good comes out of witnessing the trauma of that women's free skate program, and how all three Russian athletes were very clearly traumatized by how that program ended.
And Tara Lipinski in the voiceover was really clear that all the athletes were, which I thought was a really, obviously she would know better than any of us.
Yeah.
That the question of, are you competing on a fair playing ground? Why are we even bothering?
Right.
All of that trauma, and none of these children are fully cooked. Like, all of these are children.
Yeah. And so I worry that I don't have a lot of trust for the IOC. But I worry that their response, worried me, because their response to what happened last week was that maybe we should change the age limits. Maybe we should make it so that 15-year-olds can't compete. And I was like, okay, so yeah, part of the problem was that she was 15 years old, But most of the problem was that you forced her into this position in which she was under exceptionally higher pressure than she already was. She knew what people were saying about her, including most of her colleagues. She knew that a lot of her colleagues that she was skating with didn't want her out there. And the fact that the arbitration court decided it would be more traumatic for her if she didn't compete than if she did, I think we have the evidence to the contrary of that. But I'm a little bit alarmed by the IOC's response. Is like, oh, well, we shouldn't have 15-year-olds in the competition. I'm like, oh, well, maybe you should regulate how, like, young people are coached and the kind of environment they're in. Like, that was not the lesson to take from this. The lesson to take from this was, oh, she shouldn't have competed.
And I think it's a yes and. Like, I think it's a great idea to raise to 18 because as I read more about what these quads do to young ass bodies, like,
oh, for sure,
I think it's a great idea. But it's a yes and the IOC is presenting it as the yes. Because I agree with you. The larger conversation is about how do we train these athletes, and then what do we do with them, and the juxtaposition of the joy that we watch at the opening ceremonies and they're all excited. And then the closing ceremonies aren't small just because everybody else went home. I think the closing ceremonies are small because if you didn't win anything, you don't want to walk in them. In some countries, I'm sure in other countries, I'm sure that's not true. Because you are just thrilled to compete because you don't have the system behind you. But all these big ones, man, I mean, like, it's not a funny joke that we're worried that the Chinese athletes that don't win aren't going to be allowed to see their families ever again.
Yeah.
It's not a funny joke that, like, are we 100% sure that Kamila Valieva is not going to be punished somehow? And I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if she didn't want to skate. To be honest, if I was 15 and I had all this happening and, like, I'm sure it's just the way that she looked utterly terrified on that ice. Even before she started skating, she did not want to be there.
No.
At all.
And if we're not promoting support systems, if we're not creating support systems and demanding support systems that are there to see the athletes and to hear the athletes in whatever capacity, Simone Biles, Allie Reisman, you're talking about, like, mental health issues. You're talking about sexual abuse. You're talking about psychological strain. If we're not encouraging those support systems and sustaining them, like, what are we doing? Why are we accepting this level of treatment so that people can entertain us with their talent?
And so then where does it leave us as viewers? Are we complicit in this? Because I was thinking, like, so for anyone who doesn't know the behind the, like, baseball, there's only one set of cameras allowed in all of these kind of feeds. And then every country sends their own technicians to kind of manage the feed and bring it back and forth. But, like, NBC didn't have a camera in the back bit. The international feed followed those girls and violated their privacy.
Yeah.
And so the viewers and even the commentators, you could tell they didn't want to be talking about what was on their screens, but they had no control over what was being shown. And so there's a lot of elements of this. I was grateful to the American commentators that they just kept saying, this is wrong. Also, this is how we found out Johnny Weir speaks Russian. We shouldn't be watching this. Like, I was grateful that they called it out, which is another reason to have former athletes as commentators much more often than we do have them, especially in the Olympics. Yeah. There was a guy doing the snowboarding that, like,
oh, he was the best.
He was the best. I have been doing this for decades and that is a crime. Okay, but
I am irate.
I love your passion. But that was what happened. We violated the privacy of children.
And we put their trauma on international television. On international television in prime time in the United States for our entertainment. And, you know, we talked about it as we were watching and going through it. I vacillated about how I felt about her competing until she competed Tuesday night in the short program. And I just felt real icky. I felt real icky. And I was like, no, she shouldn't be there. She doesn't look like she wants to be there. I don't like the message this is sending about skating clean, and the respect for anybody else in this profession. It looks like you're abusing this girl because she's talented, and you're going to get higher ratings and more money if she skates. And certainly didn't think she should have been skating in the free program either. And it was really, really upsetting to watch those humans in trauma. And we didn't get to see necessarily visibly the trauma of the other skaters as much as the Russian athletes. But I think of, Trusova, who also had an emotional breakdown because she didn't win. And Sherbakova, the young woman who did win, stood alone for 10 minutes backstage after winning the gold medal because her compatriots were having emotional crises.
Yeah.
And the trauma of the position she was put in to represent her country at that time, when she might be concerned for her compatriots, or she was, feeling awkward and uncomfortable. So, we put so many of them in a terrible position for what? For our entertainment. What does that say? Like you said, what does that say about us, and what can we do about it going forward?
And I don't really have an answer for it. I mean, we need to be honest, we're still going to watch them if they're on television. And part of it is because there's other stories that we want to see. And there is the beautiful, honestly, Nathan Chen's free program is one of my favorite moments of the Olympics. The Chinese pairs skating, I could watch that over and over again.
Unreal.
I learned new sports this year. I found out there was such a thing as a monobob. All of these things are wonderful.
I know. I was about to say, we should say some positive things, because we're very often accused of just railing on things on our channel. So.
Yeah. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is that the Olympic, this is what's so hard. The Olympics themselves are beautiful.
Uh-huh.
The commercialization and the capitalization of the Olympics is traumatic. That's what it comes down to. So the IOC is corrupt as hell.
Uh-huh.
Come on now. But at least in the next 3 Olympics, we are in countries that could ostensibly afford the Olympics.
Yes.
So next we head to Paris, then we head to Italy, and then we head to America. And Italy's a shit show, but it can still afford things. So we're excited to go to Italy next.
Also, we're going to places where they can utilize structures that they already have.
Correct.
So nothing, I think only one new thing is being built for the Paris Olympics. Everything else is structures that they already have. So that is all encouraging news in terms of change.
Mm-hmm.
But to have, I think, such a blatant question of human rights at the Olympics when the host country has a laundry list of human rights questions and violations.
It just felt weird.
The Olympics should be joyful, and these people want to do it. In most cases, I'm sure there's cases where they don't feel like they have a choice, but most of these people want to do it. It's their passion. And can we just find a way to pay them equitably, treat them fairly like human beings, and provide them the support that they need so that they can pursue their dreams and we can be entertained without traumatizing 15-year-olds. It's a low bar. I feel like we can go over it. I feel like we can hop over that bar.
And yet somehow it feels like the highest bar of all. So it's really bizarre. Yeah. Other favorite moments.
Systems is not easy.
Yeah. My other favorite, I'm so glad Jamaica's back for the bobsled team. Yep. I'm glad that they have money now, obviously. Thank you, Jamaican diaspora in the UK, for providing them money. I loved that the snowboarding team of that dude and that girl. But the 40-year-old and the 37-year-old.
Oh, yeah.
Noah.
The snowboard cross.
The snowboard cross, which was such a fun event to watch.
It was so great. It was so great.
Loved those moments. And I love the camaraderie of even just having something to watch every night as a nation. I miss national conversations a lot. So it was kind of fun that we were all talking about the same thing again.
That aren't about COVID or insurrections.
that aren't about sad things. And of course we have to say that, like, I'm really looking forward to seeing people in the stands again for these poor athletes again.
Oh my gosh, I know.
In Paris, that they're not going to have to be FaceTiming their family, because that was always a little bit rough. Love watching Chloe Kim succeed. Love watching Elaine Wu succeed. I love as well the story around her choosing to compete, even though she's American or was born in America. She chose to compete for China because Chinese girls aren't encouraged to be physical.
Yeah.
And so it was one of the things that she wanted to do, was to provide role models for Chinese young girls. And I just clapped even harder for it, because I don't care about medal counts. Like, it doesn't my jingoism doesn't go that far. I love the story that comes out of it is that the women's hockey game final between Canada and America is the highest rated hockey game in the last televised hockey game in the last 5 years or something, you said?
Not quite that long, since 2019,
but still higher than the last Stanley Cup final.
Higher ratings than any NHL game this year. So hopefully, I think a lot of hope came out of this, and obviously the converse to trauma at the Olympics is joy at the Olympics, and that's, I think, why we all turn to the Olympics. Mm-hmm. We don't turn to it for trauma. Drama maybe a little bit, but sports drama, not crying children drama.
Yeah. This one crossed a line, really, and I think we all felt it. It's oh, please don't make me watch children fall apart on television again.
It was horrible. It honestly was horrible. And I just wanted to give all those girls hugs and turn off the camera.
And verbally beat the coach about her psyche.
Yeah, she doesn't seem like a compassionate coach.
I don't think we'd be friends.
No, I don't. I think I'm fairly confident in saying that. I think I'm fairly confident
in saying that we see the world a little bit differently.
Just a smidge. Just a smidge.
So we'd love to know from you, what are your thoughts here? Not only about Kamila and the trauma that was televised, but also the joy. We'd love to hear if you, especially those of our beloveds who are not Americans, tell us if there is a narrative coming out of your country. I know there was some Norwegian brothers that did some really amazing things in Nordic cross.
Yeah, it was cool. We had some Indigenous women hockey players for the Canadian national team, which was baller.
Amazing. So we'd love to know your happy stories, because we will be reporting on them as well in our empathy updates on Instagram. And I promise we're going to try to do more GDDs about positive things, but the world just keeps falling apart. So we're struggling. Next week is not planned.
Yeah, we don't have anything for next week. No.
So we are keeping our ears to the ground. And if you have a suggestion of something happening in your corner of the world that you would love us to talk about, you know how to get a hold of us. We'd love to be able to provide you that service. Yeah, we should get on to Nadine about doing another Disney one. That would be something for all of us to look forward to. Yeah, maybe we could talk about Coco. That would be. We'll schedule. We'll poke our Nadine and see if she can come join us. And in the meantime, our deep hope for you, as always, but I'll say it again in my benedictory way, is that you are safe, both physically, emotionally, that you are in a place where you can flourish, that you can be exactly who you are and chase the dreams that you have with the support around you that you deserve. And we hope that above all, you feel heard, seen, and known. We would really appreciate it if you do all the YouTube-y things, if you're here on the YouTube, if you do all the podcasty things, if you're on the podcast. As always, we would love to hear from you and know what you took away from this, other suggestions, all those kind of things. You don't need to tell us that we're over-opinionated ladies. We get that one enough. But if you've got anything else that you'd like to share, we'd love to hear it. And we remain, as ever, your faithful servants. We'll see you guys next time. Bye. Take care, everybody.